Hello, my name is Dana Vosberg, and this is my presentation for the fat burns in the flame of carbohydrates. This was a bit of a difficult task for me to solve this riddle. I feel like I learned a lot in this module as far as learning about the different energy systems and fats and carbohydrates, but learning how these two energy systems work together and kind of trying to understand how fat burns in the flame of carbohydrates was a little bit tricky. I think that I solved it, I figured it out, and I found some really good information. And I think I finally wrapped my head around it. So hopefully I can explain it here. So, first, I really went through the modules again and all the notes and the PowerPoints and really just wrapped my head around the energy systems. And this is kind of my understanding of the energy systems, the two energy system or understanding of the energy systems with the carbohydrates and the fats and how they enter the Krebs cycle. Because this is the part that kind of brings the carbs and the fats together, and how we kind of come to this saying of the fats burn in the flame of the carbohydrates. So, carbohydrates are used as a main energy source. When glucose enters your system, it is broken down during aerobic glycolysis into glucose 6 phosphate. In the final step of aerobic glycolysis, if pyruvate interacts with oxygen, it is converted into acetyl-CoA. Once converted to acetyl-CoA, it enters the Krebs cycle. Pyruvate can also be converted into oxaloacetate if biotin and Mg2 ions are present. Now, that was a really important part. I know that we learned about pyruvate being converted into acetyl-CoA and then entering the Krebs cycle. But we didn't really touch on it interacting with other enzymes and being converted into other things. So it being converted into also being able to be converted into oxaloacetate is important as far as it interacting with the fats in the Krebs cycle, is what I found. So fats are another energy source, and they enter the body as triglycerides and are broken down by a process called lipolysis into glycerol and free fatty acids. The free fatty acids then go through a process called beta oxidation and are converted into acetyl-CoA. Once converted into acetyl-CoA, they also enter the Krebs cycle. So now we have the free fatty acids and the oxaloacetate in the Krebs cycle, and this is where they interact with each other and where we kind of come up with this saying is what my understanding was. So the presence of oxaloacetate in the Krebs cycle is important to help continue to fully break down the free fatty acids. So understanding the Krebs cycle, carbohydrates and fats interaction. So I'm just going to continue on. I have some visuals here. So I'm really a visual learner, so I really tried to find some visuals of this. So you can see here at the top where the free fatty acids were converted into the acetyl-CoA, and then they enter into the Krebs cycle. And then over here, the carbohydrates could either be converted into the acetyl-CoA and enter the Krebs cycle, but they could also be converted into the oxaloacetate and enter the Krebs cycle that way. And the oxaloacetate is part of the Krebs cycle and is part of the breakdown of the free fatty acids that are a part of the Krebs cycle. So that's an important piece, and where that saying comes, because this is the flame where the carbohydrates, the fat, burns in the flame of the carbohydrates. And this is kind of like my aha moment here. So oxaloacetate, the fuel that ignites the fire. Pyruvate can be converted to acetyl-CoA or oxaloacetate at the end of glycolysis, depending on which enzymes are present. This is important in relation to free fatty acids because the oxaloacetate from the Krebs cycle is vital in completely breaking down the free fatty acids that have also entered the cycle. Without the carbohydrates being broken down through glycolysis, you would not have enough oxaloacetate to fully break down the free fatty acids. Hence the saying, fat burns in the flame of carbohydrates. In this visual, you can kind of see this kind of like sub breakdown of the pyruvate also being broken down into the oxaloacetate or the acetyl-CoA. And then this citric acid cycle is another name for the Krebs cycle. And so just like a final takeaway from this saying was that to burn fat efficiently, fats can only be effectively utilized for energy when carbohydrates are present, highlighting the importance of a balanced macronutrient intake for optimal metabolism. And so that's why a lot of nutritionists, I would imagine, encourage a healthy, balanced diet because you want to kind of have all of these macronutrients working together